crying man forced to throw a package in the trash. One day, Evelise Hernandez was getting dropped off at the airport in Florida by her boyfriend. He decided to wait with her until she got through security, but they noticed the man in front of them was taking longer than usual. The security wasn't letting the man take one of his bags through. The couple couldn't see what was in the bag, but they figured it was something important because he was almost in tears. The security also wouldn't let him put it in the lost and found. They made him put the bag in the trash. Since Evelise's boyfriend wasn't going through security, he went to the trash can and got the bag. Inside was a snow globe with a little girl on it and a couple on the other side. Evelise posted about this on Facebook and it went viral. The shop that sold the snow globe saw the post and reached out to her with the name of the person who bought it. In the end, they were able to meet up with the person that bought it and return it to her. Here's what would happen if you ate a block of dry ice. As soon as it hits your tongue, it would start to tingle, then go numb. Also, you know how bad it feels when you bite on ice cream? Well, imagine that, but way worse. And after only a couple seconds, your mouth would be completely frozen. Now, as it goes down your throat, it would tingle a little, but then when it gets to your stomach, it would start to melt. And as we know, dry ice doesn't turn into a liquid, it turns into a gas, so your stomach would start to feel bloated. Your stomach lining would also be frozen in seconds. If you decided to keep eating blocks, your stomach would continue to expand until eventually it explodes. And if you didn't go to the hospital immediately, you wouldn't survive. This dog gave up his own life to save a baby from a house fire. One night, Erica was at her house in Maryland with her 8-month-old daughter. She went outside to grab something from her car, but when she turned around, she noticed that the house was on fire. She tried running inside to get her baby and her dog named Polo, but it was already too late. The flames had blocked the staircase leading to the second floor. She decided to try running through them, but she started to get burned, so she had to turn around. She came to the conclusion that the only thing left to do was wait till the firefighters arrived. When they got there, they went upstairs and they found the dog wrapped around the baby, protecting her from the fire. The dog ended up passing away, but the baby survived. This farmer found a possible alien egg, but then a scientist tells him the truth. On one Christmas day, Jose left his house to go on a morning walk. As he walked alongside a river, something strange caught his eye. On the edge of the river, surrounded by water and mud, was a huge gray object that looked like an egg. He rushed home to tell his family what he had found, and his wife laughed because she didn't believe him. He went back to show her, and even dug out the mud around it to see how big it actually was, and it ended up being over 3 feet long. He told the public about this, and everyone started creating rumors about what it was. But after a lot of research from scientists, they discovered that it was actually a shell. 15,000 years ago, glyptodons roamed the earth, and after the scientists did some studies on the shell, they came to the conclusion that that's what it was from. Everyday objects that you didn't know had a purpose. Have you ever wondered what the small point on the top of your toothpaste cap is for? Well, most toothpaste comes with a seal on it, so you could use the cap to pop it open. The hole in a ruler is to either hang it on a screw or to draw a perfect circle with it. Bottles have a long neck for a reason. It's there for you to hold so your hand doesn't get cold, and also so you don't warm up your drink. The same thing goes for the long stem on wine glasses. The brush on the side of escalators isn't to clean your shoe. It's actually there to mark the edge of the step, because if you feel it brushing against you, your natural instinct is to take your foot away from it. And that way, your shoelace won't get caught in it. In 1998, Yahoo was given the chance to buy Google for $1 million, but they declined. 4 years later, in 2002, they realized that they made a big mistake, so they tried to buy Google for $3 billion. So Google gave them a counter offer of $5 billion, but once again, they declined. Another 4 years later, in 2006, Yahoo tried to buy Facebook for $1 billion, but Facebook counter offered them to sell it for $1.1 billion, but Yahoo declined. Just 2 years later, Microsoft offered to buy Yahoo for $44.6 billion, but they said no. By 2016, Yahoo was losing $4 billion a year, so they were forced to sell it. They ended up selling it to Verizon for $40 billion less than what Microsoft offered them at $4.6 billion. Something was living inside this man's body. One day, a man was sitting on the toilet when he felt something squirming out of him. He had been having bloody diarrhea and stomach cramps, so he thought that it might be his intestines falling out. But then he realized that it was a tapeworm, so he pulled it out and decided it was time to go to the hospital. He handed a bag to Dr. Kenny, who had been working as a doctor for 20 years in California. Inside it was a roll of toilet paper wrapped with a tapeworm that was almost 6 feet long. None of the doctors had ever seen anything like this before, but they came to the conclusion that it had been living inside him for around 6 months. But the only thing is, they're only found in Asia, so how did it get into his stomach? Well, the patient said that he loves sushi, and sometimes in raw fish like sushi, they could be infected with tapeworms. This lady thought she was pregnant, but an x-ray revealed the shocking truth. When the lady woke up one morning and she saw a bump on her stomach, she was extremely happy because she thought she was gonna have a baby. But as the days went on, it started growing extremely fast to the point where she was having trouble doing daily tasks like breathing. She decided to go to the hospital where they took x-rays of her stomach, which revealed that she wasn't pregnant and instead she had a large cyst. It was so large that it had started crushing other organs in her body, and there was a high chance that she was about to have a heart attack. So they started an emergency operation, and thankfully it was safely removed. It weighed over 70 pounds, which is equivalent to having over 10 babies in your stomach. This 10-year-old girl saved over 100 people from a tsunami, and you won't believe how she did it. In 2004, there's a tsunami with a 9.3 magnitude, which was one of the largest to hit the Asian coast. Tilly Smith was on vacation with her family when the tsunami was about to hit. A couple weeks before this trip, the girls' class was talking about tsunamis, and luckily she was paying attention. So when the early signs of the tsunami showed up, she recognized them from her class. She was able to get her family and 100 other strangers to a safe spot. They all traveled far enough away from the coast so that when the tsunami hit, it wouldn't affect them. Her family and the people that she warned all survived, but unfortunately 2 million people passed away. This boy didn't want to get new shoes, and you won't believe what happened to him. A 16-year-old boy named Tyler had really old shoes, but he liked them so much that he didn't want to get rid of them. His mom even offered to buy new ones for him, but he refused. One day, he went to the mall with his friends and he got a really bad pain in his feet. He then collapsed onto the floor because he couldn't walk. His friends decided to call an ambulance and he was rushed to the hospital. When he got there, the doctor said that since his shoes were so old, there was a dangerous spider nest living inside of his shoes and he got bit by them multiple times. The only way to survive was to get both of his feet cut off to stop the spread of the infection. Here's why shopping carts have holes. First off, have you ever wondered why there's a hole in your sink? Well, it's actually there to stop water from overflowing. Now, have you ever wondered why there's a loop on your glove? Well, they're meant for skiers, snowboarders, and hikers, so that when you're not wearing them, you could hang them on your backpack with a carabiner. That way, the opening is face down, so no snow will get inside of them. And finally, there's a bunch of reasons why shopping carts have holes in them. The first is because since the whole thing isn't covered with metal, it's a lot lighter and a lot cheaper to make. The cashiers can also see what's inside them to make sure nobody's stealing anything. It's also easier to keep clean because imagine if someone spilled milk inside of it. Lastly, if the cart is outside in the rain, it won't hold any water. 5 people who won the food lottery. This person found a huge ball of nacho cheese in their Doritos. This person got a massive potato wedge, but I don't know how it fit in the bag. This person found the number 1 in their Rice Krispies. This person found a full Oreo in their Oreo popsicle. And finally, this person found a potato shaped as a heart. Here's what the secret button on your seatbelt does, and 2 other cool facts. First off, you know that drawer underneath your oven that most people put their pots and pans in? Well, the real reason that it's there is, for example, if you're having guests over and they're late, you can put your food in there and it'll keep it warm. If you've ever been stuck on how much pasta you should cook for just yourself to eat, well, that hole in the middle of a spaghetti spoon isn't actually for draining water. It's for putting uncooked pasta inside it so you'll get the perfect serving for 1 person. And finally, the little button on your seatbelt is to stop the buckle from going past it, so it will always be in the right spot when you go to buckle it up. No one in this city locks their doors, and you won't believe why. In Churchill, Manitoba, they're known for a large population of polar bears. Lots of times you'll see them walking around town, so everyone has gotten used to them. It's also a big attraction for tourists to come visit so that they could see them. But polar bears are one of the most dangerous animals on the planet. So they'll eat anything that they could get their paws on, including humans. So if someone is walking at night and they come across a polar bear, they need to find a place to escape to, which is why lots of people leave their car doors and house doors unlocked so people can get to safety. This man hated his eye color, so he got surgery, but it went horribly wrong. Mark has brown eyes, but he's always wanted to change the color of them. He would never leave the house, not even to take out the trash, without putting in blue contacts. But one day, he heard about a surgery that came out in 2014 that lets you change your eye color from brown to blue. He was warned by many people that if you do this surgery, you risk vision loss or even going completely blind. But he was determined on getting it done, so he flew to Panama to get the surgery, and at first, everything was completely fine. But almost 10 years later, he started getting swelling in his right eye until eventually it went completely blind. His left eye was slowly getting worse, but he managed to save it in time by getting surgery to remove what he had gotten done 10 years ago. A kid got dared to ding-dong ditch a house, and you won't believe what happened to him. First off, if you don't know what ding-dong ditching is, it's where you go up to a house, knock on their door, then run away and try not to get caught. One day, while 6 kids were hanging out, one of them got dared to ding-dong ditch a house. So the boy went up to the door, rang the doorbell, then ran back to his friend's vehicle, and they drove off. But the homeowner saw what they were doing, so he decided to get into his vehicle and follow them. He managed to catch up to them, then hit the back of their car, sending them out of control until they hit a tree. Out of the 6 boys, the 3 shown above sadly passed away. This is the luckiest person alive. Bill Morgan was declared dead for 14 minutes, but he somehow survived. And to celebrate his survival, he bought a scratch ticket and he won a $27,000 car. A news channel later asked him to reenact scratching the card on camera. So he bought another one and ended up winning the $250,000 jackpot. This man's soda tasted weird, so he looked inside and you won't believe what was in it. All the way back in 2009, Fred and his wife were sitting down to have dinner one night. He decided to have a Pepsi to drink, but when he took a sip of it, he didn't feel very good. He never tasted a Pepsi that had tasted like that before, so he wondered what was inside of it. His wife asked him what it tasted like, but he couldn't find the words to describe it. They decided to pour it out and discovered that inside was a dead frog. They immediately phoned poison control, but luckily, Fred was completely fine. Because Pepsi is so acidic that any poisonous bacteria from the frog wouldn't have been able to survive. Here's how to survive a brake failure. Imagine the light turns from green to red, so you hit the brake, but nothing happens. The first thing you'll want to do is put on your hazard lights, then honk your horn to alert others. Now you'll want to start zigzagging on the road to try and slow down. If there's shrubs on the side of the road, then drive over them because it'll slow you down as well. If there's a guardrail, then you could drive against it because your life is more important than your vehicle. Then pull your e-brake. It won't have enough power to stop you, but it'll slow you down. If you're in a manual car, then start downshifting because the engine will slow you down. If you're in an automatic, most of them have a manual option that you could put it in to do this. And lastly, look for a hill or an upward slope that you could go up to bring you to a stop. Here's how caviar is made and why it's so expensive. Iranian omos is the most expensive caviar in the world, and it's even in the Guinness Book of World Records. It can cost up to $30,000 for just 2 pounds of it. There's only one fish in the world whose eggs are considered real caviar, and that's the sturgeon fish. It's one of the most ancient fish too, being discovered over 66 million years ago. But because of the pollution in the water and the hunting of these fish, they were placed under a protection act to save them from going extinct, which is one reason why the prices are so high. The other reason is because to start up a sturgeon fish farm facility, it costs $2 million just for the basic stuff. And that isn't including workers, extra equipment, the fish, and more. Plus on top of that, the fish need a high protein diet to make the best caviar, which means that the fish food flakes that you buy for a pet fish won't work. You need to buy more fish just to feed these fish. If you see this on your banana, throw it out immediately. Have you ever seen a small white bump on your banana? Well, I hope not, because it's actually the nest of a spider. But it's not just any spider, it's the Brazilian wandering spider, which is the world's most venomous. If it bites you, it will cause nausea, blurred vision, extreme pain, and then death. You usually won't find them outside of South America, but since they love hiding in dark, moist places, they sometimes make a nest in between bananas, which in the rare occasion would then be transported to your local grocery store. In 2013, a British family had to evacuate their house because dozens of spiders started crawling out of their bananas. 2 impossible places people were found. Firefighters in Arizona had been called to a house because there had been lots of reports of yelling coming from inside of the house. After investigating, they were shocked to find that the yelling was actually coming from inside of the chimney. It took 3 firefighters to pull out the man from the chimney, and he was actually the homeowner. He said that he accidentally locked the keys inside the house, so he thought he would try getting in through the chimney. Another fire department in Norway got called to help someone who was stuck in a public bathroom. When they got there, they searched the whole bathroom, but they couldn't find anyone until they saw 2 hands sticking out of a toilet. Apparently, the man accidentally dropped his phone inside the toilet, so when he went to go get it, he fell in. And inside the toilet is a giant hole that's only cleaned once a year, and he was in there for over an hour. 3 genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Have you ever had to go to the bathroom while you're watching a new movie at a theater, but you don't want to miss it? Well, this bathroom in Switzerland has a screen on the floor playing the movie in real time so you don't miss anything. Now, have you ever been sitting on the couch or laying in your bed and you get a low battery message on your phone, but there's nowhere to plug it in nearby? Well, this genius invention can be used normally, but when you need extra length, just pull it out of the wall and you have 5 more feet. When you want to put it back, you just give it a small pull and it retracts all the way back into the wall. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I use a public washroom, after I wash my hands, I always grab the paper towel and use it to open the door. But with this invention called the topener, it lets you open the door with your feet so you never have to touch the door handle again. This dad loses it after finding out what the babysitter did to his daughter. Jason Weshy, the father of 3-year-old Hannah, is a hardworking man, and some days he just can't get everything done that he wants to while looking after his daughter. So he decided to look around for a babysitter, and he got recommended one by a friend. The 35-year-old babysitter named Lindsay had been looking after his daughter for a few months now, when one day she phoned 911 to report that Hannah had fallen to the ground unconscious. Jason rushed to the babysitter's house as soon as he found out, and when he got there, he saw his daughter on the ground unconscious with a black eye. She was brought to a children's hospital where she had to have part of her skull removed to relieve the swelling in her brain. When the cops questioned the babysitter, she admitted that she was shaking the girl, which caused the girl to fall over onto concrete and be put in a coma. The little girl was left brain dead, and after 3 days, she was pronounced dead. The babysitter was charged with child endangerment and assault, but she pleaded not guilty and was let go free. This Titanic survivor claims an iceberg didn't hit the ship. Vananak Bayarat was a survivor of the Titanic. He shared room 804 with 2 Englishmen and a Frenchman. The Frenchman was named Morin, and they quickly became friends. On April 15th, 1912, at midnight, they heard a loud explosion that woke them up and made them fall out of their beds. They rushed out of the room to find out that the ship was sinking. Since they had no other options to try and survive, they all jumped into the sea with nothing but their safety vests. But unfortunately, when they hit the water, they were all separated and never found each other again. Vananak quickly ran out of strength due to the extremely cold water, but he managed to survive thanks to Mrs. Astor, who happened to pass by him on a lifeboat. She begged him to get in with her because she thought he was her son. He managed to reach the United States alive, but he never said anything about hitting an iceberg. He always said that the reason that the Titanic sank was due to an explosion. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't hit an iceberg or it did hit an iceberg, I'm just telling this guy's story. This man discovers his wife's secret hidden in a closet, then realizes he made a big mistake. After the birth of Blake and Lori's daughter, Lori began to start acting strange, which eventually led to the couple getting a divorce a little while later. Lori took her own life on December 24th, 2010. She was found in her vehicle with a gunshot wound. They also found 2 letters, one to her ex-husband and one to her daughter. A little while after her death, they discovered a box in her closet with personal documents. One of the documents was a birth certificate of Becky Sue Turner, who was a child who died in a fire when she was just 2 years old. Apparently, she used the child's documents to change her name to Lori Erica Kennedy. 6 years later, in 2013, her identity was finally revealed. Her real name was Kimberly McLean, and she ran away from home when she was just a teenager. Her past is still a mystery. She ran away from home, then changed her name to avoid being caught from the authorities. But even after her death, her reasoning to do all this is still a mystery. Here's why beds are raised off the ground, plus 2 other cool facts. During the summer, the Eiffel Tower is 6 inches bigger than any other season due to thermal expansion. The heat makes its particles move around more, so they occupy more space. Shadows are way darker on the moon, making it almost impossible to see anything. This is because the atmosphere scatters more sunlight to Earth. Also, since there's no water or wind on the moon, there's nothing to get rid of footprints, so they'll be there forever. And finally, beds are above the floor because the floor gets cold at night since warm air rises. They're also like this to avoid dirt on the floor from getting onto the bed. This man was selling pens to feed his child, and this photo changed their lives forever. Abdul was a single father and a Syrian refugee living in Lebanon. One day, he was selling pens while holding his daughter when a web developer saw them and decided to take a picture, then post it on Twitter. He shared the picture because he wanted to show a hardworking father trying to make money to take care of his family. The photo ended up going viral, so he started a fundraiser campaign to try and raise money for Abdul and his daughter. He was hoping to raise around $5,000, but after 24 hours of it being created, the campaign had made over $100,000 of donations. So far, Abdul has received 40% of the donations, and with that money, he was able to move into a larger apartment and send his child to school. They also helped 16 other Syrian refugees by giving them jobs at a kebab store and 2 bakeries that he was able to open with the money that was donated. Here's how to survive a cone snail attack. First off, don't collect shells that stand out too much. The shell design of a cone snail sticks out way more to try and and get people to pick it up, so they can then be attacked with its venomous sting. Make sure to wear protective footwear if you're walking along shallow parts of the tropical waters, because the cone snail often hides in the sand by the shore, then sneaks up on you and attacks you when you're not expecting it. If you're walking in the water, pay attention to what you feel, because the snail is capable of releasing insulin-based toxins, which when you're close by to it, it reduces your blood sugar level. This will make you feel dizzy, so if you're dizzy, get out of the water because you're about to be stung. Now, if you've been stung, stay calm and don't panic. When you get nervous, your blood flow will increase, spreading the venom across your whole body a lot faster. Keep pressure on the area to slow down the spread and head to the hospital as soon as possible. If you've been stung and you're nowhere close to a hospital, take advantage of every second, because there's no antidote for its venom, and it causes respiratory problems and muscle spasms due to the pain. 1 in a million coincidences. These two bushes were perfectly spread out enough to make it look like they were the tires. This person accidentally dropped the plate, but instead of it shattering into a million pieces, it perfectly split into 2. This man ran a marathon, and the number that they gave him was the same number that was on his shirt. But what's even more scary is the time that they clocked him at was the exact same number. This person managed to take a picture at the exact time a balloon exploded. And finally, this person took a picture because the exact same vehicles were parked next to each other and the exact same birds were beside them. This man wrestled a shark to get back his nephew's arm. In 2011, a little boy named Jesse was swimming in the ocean when he got attacked by a shark. His uncle immediately carried him out of the water and started giving him chest compressions until the paramedics arrived. Then when they arrived to take him to the hospital, his uncle ran back into the water and started wrestling the shark onto the land. Then he pried open the shark's mouth and managed to get his nephew's arm back. He then put the arm in a cooler full of ice and rushed to the hospital with it. Luckily, he got there fast enough and they were able to reattach the arm back onto the boy. Past and present technology, then and now. The first ever mechanical calculator was built in between 1851 and 1915. It could perform the 4 basic operations: addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. Today's calculators aren't mechanical, they're electronic, and they can complete all sorts of mathematical problems within seconds. The first ever cell phone weighed over 2 pounds and costed $4,000. It could only be used for 30 minutes and then it would take 10 hours to charge. Today, an iPhone 13 weighs 0.38 pounds and costs around $800. It charges in 1.5 hours and the battery can last approximately 20 hours. The first TV was mechanical and appeared in 1920. Models B and C consisted of cabinets with a small display, and it could barely reach 30 lines per frame. Today's TVs have digital technology and have a resolution of up to 8K, which is 33.2 megapixels per frame, or 175 times more than the first ever TV. Mysterious discoveries that were found underneath lakes that dried out. In 2019, a 13-foot statue of Buddha's headless body was found in Thailand when a Buddhist temple was emerged after being underwater for 20 years. Saga Venesek, an 8-year-old girl, went on vacation with her family to Lake Vidostern in Sweden. That same summer, it was so hot that lots of the water had evaporated, and the girl took that opportunity to go even deeper into the lake. She found a sword that was over 1,500 years old. In Lake Rupkund in the Himalayan mountains, there's an amazing skating rink in the winter, but when summer comes, the ice melts and hundreds of skeletons emerge from the water. It is said that the skeletons come from victims who all died at the same time over 1,000 years ago. And finally, the Sea of Galilee in Israel dried up so much to the point where archaeologists decided to dig a hole in the middle of it. And in 2015, they found an ancient bronze mask that represented the half-man, half-goat god of music. Strict rules Kim Jong-un makes his wife follow. She had to change her name to Ri Sol-ju to avoid being associated with one of her family members. Her date of birth and other documents are hidden. She had to hide while she was pregnant. She's only allowed to go out in public if her husband is there. Her past as a singer and a cheerleader had to be eliminated. So that means 9 musicians in the orchestra that she sang in had to be executed to prevent information about her life being leaked. She has to allow her husband to be with other women. She's not allowed to get a divorce if they're not getting along or if there's domestic violence. She can't travel outside of North Korea unless it's strictly necessary. She can't visit her family. And lastly, she doesn't really have a choice of what she wears and how she does her hair. This man takes home a rock found on the beach until scientists discover what it actually is. Gary and Angela Williams are a British couple who like to walk on the beach and look for unusual objects. On one of their walks, they smelled something stinky, so they went over to see what it was. They found some sort of sticky gray stone. Although they didn't know exactly what it was, they figured it could be something important. They thought it might be an ambergris, which is something that's produced in the intestines of whales when things that couldn't be ingested clump up and harden over time. Ambergris can take years to form and is very rare. It's really valuable in the perfume industry and can cost $70,000 because over time it develops a sweet scent that's used in expensive perfumes. The couple looked for help to discover what they actually found, and scientists in France and New Zealand both confirmed that it actually was an ambergris. However, the value of it is still unknown because more studies had to be done to figure out how old it is. This dog sleeps in a graveyard, and here's why. Wiley is a Siberian wolf who belonged to its owner named Gladys, who unfortunately passed away. In a video posted in 2013 that has over 4 million views, it looked and sounded like the dog was making the same noises that humans make when we cry. It was the first time the family had ever seen him like this. He was doing this as he laid down on the grave of his old owner. His family had to pet him and talk to him to make him feel better. Years ago, Wiley was a service dog who helped war veterans overcome their post-traumatic stress disorder. After Gladys's death, her grandson promised to take good care of Wiley for the rest of his life. Some people think that the dog was sneezing and not crying, but Gladys's family claims that they've never seen him do that before and he's never done it again. What do you think? This 17-year-old goes to her friend's house for a sleepover, but then something terrible happens. In June 2008, when Cody was at his friend's house for a sleepover, his mom called him to check on him, but he didn't answer, so then she got worried. Cody ended up calling her back later, but by the sound of his voice, his mom could tell that something was wrong, so she called 911 immediately. At the hospital, they told him that he had suffered from a stroke. They then had to send him by a helicopter to a special medical institute in another state for treatment. Every single second that passed was crucial. When he got there, he had emergency surgery because he had a lot of swelling in his brain. They had to wait 3 weeks to see the results from the surgery to see if Cody would make it. They said it would take Cody a long time to speak again, but he was able to speak again just 1 month after surgery, and his first words were, "I love you, Mom, and thanks to the surgeons for saving my life." He had to do rehab to learn how to do many things again, but after 2 years, he was fully recovered. If these places were not filmed, no one would believe they exist. This skywalk in China is an artificial waterfall with a walkway that serves as a lookout for up to 3,000 people. It's 500 meters in the air and it cost around $40 million to make. It also offers a night show with about 2,000 lights that light up the platform and the waterfall. From the sky, this phenomenon is an optical illusion that looks like the island of Mauritius is going to be dragged into the sea, but all it is an effect from the flow of the underwater currents. On this beach in Iceland, the thing that sticks out the most is the black sand. It comes from lava that flows through the ocean, which hardens it and turns it black as it cools down. Bolivia has the largest salt flat in the world, which is about 4,000 miles long. The surface reflects the sky as if it was a giant mirror. You can't call yourself a driver if you don't know these 3 secrets. If you get stuck in snow, sand, or mud, you should move the steering wheel from side to side to give the tires more room to maneuver, then put the vehicle in reverse to make even more space. Get the tire jack from the back of the vehicle, then raise it into the air so you can place branches or floor mats underneath the wheels. This will give the tires something to grip on, so now you can just drive out and you're free. Turn on the air conditioning even in the winter. Even if it's cold outside, you should turn on your air conditioning at least once a month for a few minutes because this will prevent the system from deteriorating. If you notice the person in front of you is driving unsafe, then pay attention to their front wheels so you can anticipate their next move and not be surprised. The 3 craziest military training exercises. Cobra Gold consists of drinking the blood from a decapitated cobra. This exercise is usually done by the military forces of Thailand. They do this because cobra blood is a good substitute for water to keep you hydrated. In the target shooting exercise, the Russian elite forces must be shot by their commander, which goes directly in their chest, but of course with the protection of a bulletproof vest. The goal of this is to develop trust with the other soldiers and to get used to gunfire in high pressure situations. Hot grenade is like the game Hot Potato, but in this case, the soldiers use a live grenade, passing it from hand to hand. Once the detonation signal goes off, they have to throw the grenade into a hole in front of them to avoid getting hurt. This training exercise is most common in the Chinese military. 3 places you can't go and people who went there anyway. The Catacombs of Paris is the largest underground cemetery in the world. It was built in the 18th century and is filled with the bones of over 6 million people. Although it's illegal to explore it, some people have gone there and got lost forever. Nuku Hiva Island was home to Henry Haiti, who was a cannibal who attacked a couple of tourists who didn't know that he lived there. Unfortunately, the man was cooked and eaten by him, but the woman survived. A little while later, the cannibal was caught and sentenced to 28 years in prison. In 2019, a 14-year-old boy named Harley Dilly decided to enter an abandoned house after having an argument with his parents. While trying to enter from the chimney, the boy got stuck and was unable to get out, then unfortunately passed away due to the lack of air. His body was then found a month later. This is the story of the Hope Diamond, which ruined its owners' lives. The Diamond of Hope is a beautiful looking gem, but it's said to bring bad things to whoever that wears it. Jean-Baptiste Tavernier was the first owner of this gem, but as soon as he got it, he had non-stop fevers that didn't go away until he sold it to King Louis of France. Then Louis decided to bring it to his jeweler and asked him if he could make it into a necklace that he could wear on special occasions. But a little while after the necklace was ready, he passed away due to not getting enough blood flow to the brain. The jewel was then passed on to his wife, who used to wear it every single day. But after the outbreak of the French Revolution, she was executed by the guillotine. Years later, the owner was Abdul Hamid II, who was a Turkish king, but his life changed for the worse shortly after he started wearing it. Due to the military revolution of the Young Turks, he was overthrown as king and spent his last days in prison. A neighbor heard noises coming from a chimney, then firefighters find their worst fear. A couple from Virginia heard strange noises coming from their neighbor's chimney and also saw a little girl outside their house asking for help, so they decided to call the fire department immediately. When the firefighters got there, they tried to enter the chimney from above, but because it was so small, it was impossible to enter. So they decided to go to the basement of the house, which is where the bottom of the chimney was, and began to break everything to get to where the noise was coming from. It turned out to be a 5-year-old boy who was trapped in the chimney for over 4 hours. He was also the older brother of the little girl that was asking the neighbors for help. What happened was after his parents read him a bedtime story, he didn't want to go to bed, so he hid in the chimney. He finally decided to let the firefighters help him get out, and he was reunited with his family. 5 of the most dangerous places on Earth. Mount Washington is almost 2,000 meters high and known as one of the most dangerous mountains to hike in the world because the high wind speeds mixed with the temperature drops it to as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius. Snake Island has one of the most venomous snakes in the world, which is the golden lancehead snake. It's highly venomous, so stepping on this island can be extremely dangerous. Keeney Atoll may seem like a nice place to take a vacation. However, it has really high levels of radiation because lots of nuclear tests were performed there, making it unlivable for humans. Death Valley holds the record for the highest temperature recorded on the planet, which is 57 degrees Celsius, and if you're out there long enough, it could kill you. If you live near the Sinabung volcano in Indonesia, it may not be the safest place because that volcano erupts way more than others. This is why you should never release 1.5 million balloons into the air at the same time. In 1986, in Cleveland, Ohio, they wanted to break the world record for releasing the most balloons into the air at one time. But on the day that they were going to release them, the sky got really cloudy and they were predicting a storm. So they decided to just release the balloons before the storm hit. So they did, and they all expected the balloons to just keep going up into the sky, but they were wrong. The cold weather and rain from the storm caused all the balloons to start falling down from the sky. The ground and water then started to fill up with balloons, which caused a bunch of car accidents and forced the airports to shut down until they could clear all the balloons from the runway. Unbelievable hidden homes you won't believe exist. An architect named Laura decided to buy an abandoned public toilet in London, and she turned it into a luxurious home. It might be a bit strange to enter this house from the street since it looks like you're going into the bathroom, but she spent $80,000 on it to make it a house. This place located in Florida allows you to sleep with the fish. It's an underwater research laboratory that was converted into a hotel. The cost per night is $900, but it also includes an underwater pizza delivery delivered by a diver. To enter it, you have to dive into the water and swim through the entrance, but the view makes it worth it. And lastly, we have this treehouse that was built in the middle of a forest in Sweden. It almost looks invisible because it's surrounded by one-way mirror, so guests can look out, but nobody could look in. It has space for 2 people to stay in it, and it costs $559 a night. The world's most dangerous attraction. This giant natural crater is located in the desert of Turkmenistan. It's 100 feet deep, and it's been burning non-stop for over 50 years, reaching temperatures of up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. This human catapult is located in New Zealand. If you're brave enough to go on it, you'll be launched 150 meters across the Nevis Valley at a speed of 60 miles per hour, but it only lasts around 1.5 seconds, so you better not blink or you might miss it. The Crocosaurus Cove is located in Australia. You're submerged underwater in a transparent capsule that allows you to basically swim with the huge crocodiles. And finally, we have this 72-foot high swing located in China, which allows people to swing over the cliff of a mountain. Someone was leaving this girl strange notes at 3 a.m., so she set up a camera to catch them. A girl named Jessie from North Carolina began feeling someone's presence as if she was being followed. She then began to see notes around her apartment with handwriting that wasn't hers, which confirmed to her that someone might actually be following her. The notes contained little reminders of tasks that Jessie had to complete, but who was writing them? To find out, she set up a camera in her house to record everything, but unfortunately, she didn't catch anything. So she decided to share everything that was happening with her on Reddit, and lots of people told told her to go to the doctor. She decided to go, and when she got there, the doctor told her to put a carbon monoxide sensor in her room. After she installed it, the device was giving a reading of 100 ppm, which basically means that her symptoms and visions were due to carbon monoxide poisoning, since it deprives the brain of oxygen, making people hallucinate. 3 secrets hidden in SpongeBob. When the show was in its early stages of being created, Steven Hillenburg, who's the creator of the series, decided the main character would be named SpongeBoy. That way it would be made clear that he's a sponge and not a slice of cheese. However, he didn't know that that name was already being used by a mop company, so he had to change it to SpongeBob. And fun fact, SpongeBob's real name is Robert Harold Squarepants. Bikini Bottom's favorite restaurant called the Krusty Krab is actually the exact same shape as a lobster trap. I bet the customers wouldn't be eating there if they knew that. And lastly, Bikini Bottom is located in Bikini Atoll, which is a place where the US government in real life performed nuclear tests between 1946 and 1958, which released a bunch of radiation in the area. Mansions that no one wants even for $1. At Lake Superior in Michigan is this large 23-bedroom cabin with a private dock and private hot tub. It was initially put up for sale for $40 million, but then it was cut in half. And this is because the interior is really old. The nearest town is 200 miles away, and in the winter the place freezes because it's so big and it's really expensive to heat all 23 bedrooms. This castle is located in New York, but the problem is, it's less than half of a castle now. Because in 1920, it was used to store weapons, and then it exploded, destroying half of the place. Also, in the 1970s, a fire destroyed the roof and foundation. In Italy, there's a community that sells houses for only €1, but there's a catch. The houses are in a pretty bad condition, and if you decide to get one, then you have to start a renovation process within 3 years of buying it. So while it only costs €1, the renovations cost around $25,000. Genius inventions that still only exist in Japan. So you know how usually you would just put your wallet in your pants pocket, right? Well, in Japan, they make ties with pockets so you don't have to carry a wallet and you can put everything that you put in your wallet in the tie. It's common to find vending machines all over Japan with random things for sale, like video games and magazines all the way to underwear, but the funniest part is, it's really hard to find one that sells chips or chocolate bars. Diagonal crosswalks were designed to make it faster to get to where you're going, but if you're a driver on the other hand, it probably makes it slower because you're gonna have to wait longer. This is called a silent karaoke microphone. It lets you listen to your favorite songs and sing along to them without anybody else hearing you. This picture is not Photoshop. Someone was just walking by the ocean when they saw a floating ship, so they took a picture. The reason it looks like it's floating is just because of the sky's reflection on the water. Here's why Iceland is the safest country in the world. First of all, the crime rate is so low that the police don't even carry guns. The SWAT team does carry them, but they barely have to use them because the average murder rate per year is 0 to 1.5. They also have barely any harmful animals. So that means no mosquitoes, no ticks, no bears, no snakes, no poisonous spiders, and things like that. No one that lives there has a bodyguard, not even the president. Parents leave their toddlers outside in strollers to nap. They say that babies usually fall asleep in less than 1 minute due to the cool and fresh air. And finally, the fastest speed limit they have is 90 kilometers per hour or 55 miles per hour. This farmer gets revenge on people for illegally parking on his lot. Deveo Betakovic owned a large field near the village center, and a market had just opened near his farmhouse. But the market didn't have a parking lot, so people started parking on his field. And at first, he didn't mind since it was just a few people, but as the weeks went on, more and more people started parking there to the point where he couldn't do any work. He decided to go and ask the people if they could park somewhere else. Everyone agreed with him and left, but when he wasn't outside, more people parked there. He's a busy man, so he couldn't be there all day telling people not to park there, and at one point he got so mad that he considered slashing people's tires. He also considered building a fence, but it would have cost too much money. So he decided to get on his tractor and plow the dirt around the vehicles, creating trenches. When people tried to leave, some of them got stuck in the mud, and one lady got so mad that she called the police. When they got there, people were saying that the farmer should be arrested. But in the end, the police said that since it's his private property, he could do whatever he wants, and if he wanted, he could even press charges for trespassing. This cop found a missing boy because he plays video games. One Saturday night, a 911 call was made reporting a missing boy. Gary Strebel was the officer assigned, so he drove to the house to look for clues. When he was looking in the boy's bedroom, he found a laptop that was left open. He also saw that Discord was left open on it, and if you don't know what that is, it's an app that lets you voice chat and text while playing video games with other people. Luckily, Luckily, the officer had been playing video games since he was just a little boy, and he uses Discord when he's not at work. He decided to open his personal Discord and send a friend request to the missing boy. He figured that if the boy had the Discord app downloaded on his phone, he could trick him into answering. He also noticed that the boy had just been texting with other people on Discord, and within a few minutes, he responded. The man said right away that he was an officer, but the boy didn't believe it since he was using Discord. But then he explained that he's just a normal guy who likes to play video games when he's not at work. He didn't hear back from the boy, so he thought his plan had failed, but then he responded. He said, "Okay, I'll take your word for it and come back home." About an hour later, he returned back home and he wasn't hurt. This delivery driver collapsed at a front door, and you won't believe why. In this video, you can see a UPS driver slowly walking to a front door and then falling onto the ground. The reason is because he's suffering from a heat stroke due to it being 110 degrees in Arizona. He lied down for a little while, then he finally got enough energy to get up, ring the doorbell, and then he stumbled back into his delivery truck. He has to suffer like this the whole day because there's no air conditioning in UPS trucks. They say the reason is because it wouldn't do anything since they're always making stops. So what they do instead is leave the doors open, but it doesn't help that much. Luckily, nothing bad happened to that man, but something easily could have went wrong. Don't throw these bags away. You've probably came across these before after buying a new bag or maybe new shoes. Well, instead of putting your phone in a bag of rice when you drop it in water, put it in a bag with these bags. They're called silica gel and they attract water molecules. That's why they're put in with shoes, for example, because they attract moisture, preventing things like mold. So if you put them in a bag with your phone, it'll suck it dry. Smart tactics that police use when they pull you over. If the cop is suspicious of you, then they'll tap your rear tail light. By doing this, it may startle the driver and make them stop whatever they're doing. This also lets the officer see if the trunk is locked so no one can jump out and ambush them. But the main reason they do this is so that they can leave their fingerprint. So if anything bad happens to the cop, they can prove that the suspect made contact with them. Here's what happens when chocolate factories mess up the shape. With Kit Kat bars, for example, if the shape gets messed up, then they all go into a big blue bin. Then it's combined with cocoa and sugar, and in the end, this is what they use to glue the waffles inside the Kit Kat together. This is the scariest elevator in the world. It's located in Prague and it never stops moving. It goes in a continuous loop and you have to get on and get off quickly or else you'll miss your floor. And even though it's called the elevator of death, there has been no accidents. If you see black spots on your fries, this is what it is. They're not anything bad, they're just pockets of sugar. If the fries are stored in a fridge or a freezer, then some of the starch that they contain turns into sugar. And when the cook deep fries them, it makes the sugar on the outside cook before the inside, which is why they're dark and can sometimes taste a little burnt. The harshest punishments for the smallest crimes, Part 1. After the death of Kimber Reynolds in 1992, her father was mad that one of the men involved in her death, who was also a lifelong criminal, was only sentenced to 9 years in prison. So he decided to help the state of California create a 3-strike rule, meaning the second time someone goes to prison, they're sentenced to 2 times the amount of years as their first time in prison. And if they go to prison for a 3rd time, then they're sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. This is to try and stop criminals from committing more crimes. But in 1995, Jerry Williams was sentenced to life in prison because he had previous convictions. And what he did this time was steal a piece of pizza from a kid at the beach. This is the worst punishment in history. It doesn't physically harm you, but it does mentally. It's called the Chinese water torture. They tie up your arms and legs so you can't move, then they place a water bucket over your head, and at the bottom of the bucket, there's a tiny hole that releases drops of water onto their forehead every few seconds. While it doesn't sound so bad, just imagine doing this for weeks non-stop. Cute animals that are actually dangerous, Part 2. Slow lories are usually found in Southeast Asia. They're also the only venomous mammal on the earth. When they feel threatened, they release venom out of their elbows. Then they lick it to get it mixed with their saliva, and then bite their predator. And if it's done to a human, it can cause rashes, illness, allergic reactions, and even death. This is the NFL's most wanted man. 89-year-old Dion Rich has snuck into 33 Super Bowls. In 1978, he even managed to carry the Cowboys coach off the field when they won. It all started when he owned a bar which was a popular drinking spot for NFL players. This allowed him to overhear where the players' bus would arrive at the stadium. So he arrived there at the same time as them and followed them inside. The NFL has reportedly spent thousands of dollars on private investigators to stop this man from getting in. The most clever ads, Part 1. First off, football players love getting cool haircuts. So when Brazil's main football league banned alcoholic beverages from being sponsorships on jerseys in 2021, a Brazilian beer brand named Brahma got an idea. They invented a new hairstyle that looks like their drink, where they then promoted it to fans on social media. Cute animals that are actually extremely dangerous, part 1. Although dolphins are known to be human-friendly, intelligent, and playful, they can also be one of the most dangerous animals if you upset them. They occasionally bite people with their sharp teeth. They can also kill you if they hit you hard enough with their nose, and also if they pull you underwater. This teacher gets pranked and it makes his day. At first, you can tell he wasn't in the best mood based on his facial expressions. A student was also doing work from another class and the teacher wasn't too happy about that. But that all changed when he sat down.
I have to finish. Well, you can finish it after you start my final. You're on my time now. All right, you need to separate.
What the heck was that?
Somebody's seen her prank you. Hey, look here, drive it. Hey, cover. Guys.
If your chocolate looks dusty, here's why. It means that the cocoa butter used to make the chocolate has been separated to the rest of the bar due to heat. But don't worry, it's still safe to eat, it just might not taste 100%, so you might want to use it for cooking. Here's 2 other fun facts about food. Did you know that oranges created the color orange? A long time ago, the color orange was called yellow-red, but when the fruit called an orange became popular, since it was orange, everyone started calling that color orange. And lastly, honey is the only food that can never go bad as long as it's sealed from the air. Dangerous things scientists did to themselves. Henry Smolinski was tired of working his job as an engineer, so he decided to quit and pursue his dream, which was to make the world's first flying car available for anyone in the world to purchase. His plan was to take a Ford Petna and put it together with the tail and wings of a Cessna Skymaster plane. After a bunch of successful test flights, the public launch was only a few months away. But one day, when Henry and his co-founder was doing further testing, they came crashing down. Due to bad welds and bad locking mechanisms, the wings failed and they crashed. Unfortunately, everyone in the flying car passed away. Here are the 3 weirdest websites on the internet. First off, we have sanger.dk, and all it is a puppy that licks your screen. Next up, we have thispersondoesnotexist.com, and basically, it just shows you pictures of people who don't actually exist. And lastly, we have Endless Horse, which is where you just keep scrolling and the horse's legs never end. This April Fool's joke leaves a teacher shocked. This teacher has a rule where if your phone rings in class, you have to answer it on speaker. So for April Fools, a student decided to get her friend to call her pretending to be a nurse and tell her that she was pregnant. And the teacher's reaction is priceless.
That's okay.
I'm very sorry.
I've been expecting this, and
Okay.
I already know what I'm going to name the baby. The first name will be April, and the middle name will be Fools.
This suspect in a wheelchair gets up and runs from the cop. A police officer was escorting a man in a wheelchair into court, when all of a sudden, the man in the wheelchair gets up and starts running. After searching for him for 3 hours, they finally found him and he faces even more charges. Watch this video if you're having a bad day. This person said their name was Mark, spelled with a C, and this is what the worker wrote. At this mattress store, they also give you a small mattress for your dog if you buy one. These chickens thought the water tap was another chicken. This dog is replicating the photo on the wall. And finally, this man planted thousands of scented flowers so his blind wife could smell them, which made her get out of depression. Only kids can hear this sound. Can you hear it?
In 3, 2, 1.
Now like and comment on this video if you heard it. Photos you'll have to look at twice. This chair at the dentist looks like a Lego figure. This person's toothbrush's shadow looks like Darth Vader. The paint that got chipped off of this really old chair looks like a city skyline. In this city, it only rained on one side of the road. And finally, at first, this looks like a Kinder Surprise egg, but it's actually a real egg from a chicken. I bet you won't be able to find me in this group of people. I'm not there right now, but I'm about to be. But what I want you guys to do is close your eyes and I'm gonna count down from 3, then open them and look for me. All right, 3, make sure your eyes are closed. 2, last warning. 1, keep your eyes closed and I'm gonna tell you when to open them. Okay, try and find me. I'm gonna give you a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Here I am, baby. You can only like and subscribe if you found me. This bully got what he deserved. Every day at school, a bully would go around demanding kids to give him food at lunchtime, and he would threaten to beat them up if they didn't give him anything. One day, after a kid had lost another one of his lunches, he decided he had had enough. So that night, when he got home from school, he went to the bathroom and took a dump. Then, he put some gloves on and grabbed it out of the toilet and put it on a popsicle stick. He then melted some chocolate into a bowl and dipped it inside of it to cover up the smell. Then, he put it in the freezer overnight to harden. The next morning, he packed it in his lunch bag, and when the bully came up to him and asked him for his food, he handed over the popsicle stick. The bully took one bite and instantly vomited all over the floor. He then ran off crying, and the boy was expelled. The most bizarre coincidence in history. A few years ago, a man named Paul was paying for some groceries when he noticed something strange. One of his bills had the name Esther on it, which is the name of his girlfriend. So he decided not to pay with it and put it back in his pocket. Later that night, he wrapped up the bill to give it to his girlfriend as a joke. The next week, they went on a date and he gave it to her, and when she opened it, she was shocked. She quickly put it away and Paul was confused, but he let it slide. 2 years later, Paul and Esther got married. Then one day, when they were packing up to move into their new place, Paul saw the bill and decided to ask her about it. It turns out it was her who wrote her name on the bill before paying with it, hoping that one day the bill would return to her, and if it did, that would be the person who she marries. Since they had only been dating for a few weeks when she was given the bill, she didn't want to tell Paul the story in case it scared him away. Girls made fun of him, so he got the ultimate revenge. One day, a teenage boy was at his favorite restaurant and there was a group of girls sitting in the booth behind him. They seemed fine at first and causing no trouble, but after they left, a waitress noticed that one of them forgot their glasses on the table. So she asked the boy if he could chase after them and give them back to her. When he got outside, he noticed them driving in the parking lot and started waving at them. All they did was start laughing at him, then one of them gave him the finger and they drove off. After this, the boy was really ticked off, so he just threw the glasses in a trash can outside. Then a few minutes later, the girls returned looking for the glasses. They asked the waitress, then the waitress told them to ask the boy, so they did. And he told them he threw them in the trash. So the girls went outside to look for them, but they couldn't find them, so they came back inside and asked the boy which trash can. He then shrugged and gave them the finger. This is the luckiest unlucky man in the world. Satomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima in 1945. When out of nowhere, the US military dropped an atomic bomb on the city. Standing only 2 miles away from where it hit, Satomu jumped into a ditch to try and avoid being hit by the waves. He ended up surviving, but unfortunately 80,000 people passed away. After this, he wanted to see his family, so he traveled home, which took 3 days. A couple days later, when he went into work, he was explaining to his boss why he had burns and bandages when another bomb hit. Once again, he managed to survive and rushed home to check on his family. When he got there, his house was completely destroyed, but luckily, his wife and kid were away from the house, and they managed to take cover in a nearby tunnel. Even though the man suffered from radiation, he was able to live until 93 years old. The 3 most unlucky people ever. This man was going home on the train after buying a pizza, but he fell asleep and the pizza fell onto the ground. This person wore jeans with holes in them on a really sunny day and got burnt. And finally, this person got their basketball stuck, so they threw a broom at it, but the broom also got stuck. 3 people who beat the system. This person made slippers out of Lego, so next time they step on Lego, all that'll happen is they'll get taller. At this college, this boyfriend and girlfriend aren't allowed in the same room. So one of them put a TV at the window and brought a couch outside. And finally, this student got his phone taken away, so he dressed up as his mom and went to the principal's office to get it back. This video isn't what you think it is. You probably think that these balls are going around in circles, but if you focus on just one of them, you'll notice that all it's doing is going in a straight line back and forth. These parents had no hope left for their injured boy, but then a miracle happened. A 6-year-old boy named Caleb got into an accident which left him with brain injuries and fractured ribs. After the doctors saw his test results, they had no hope left. This is when the doctors suggested therapy. His parents were confused on how therapy would work if the medical treatments failed. But since they had no other option, they decided to give it a try. When the therapy began, a dog named Colonel walked in and they made him sit beside the boy. And as soon as this happened, his brain activity resumed and his body functions began to improve. After the first session, the doctors noticed major improvements, so they kept having more sessions. The reason the boy was improving is because he wanted to pet the dog, so he was making the effort to move his body. To this day, the doctors believe that the dog gave him the boost he needed to be able to survive and walk again. Here's what happens when you wake up during surgery. First off, if you have a surgery coming up or you don't want to be scared of them, I recommend scrolling to the next video. Because there's something called anesthesia awareness, which is when you wake up during a surgery, but you can't do anything. So you can't move your body, you can't talk, but you can feel everything. And when this happens, the doctors won't know because you won't be able to open your eyes and you won't be able to talk to them. So whatever surgery you're getting done, you'll be able to feel everything that they're doing to you. But it is very rare, only happening in 0.1% of all procedures done with anesthesia. This man cracked his knuckles every day for 60 years, and you won't believe what happened to them. His name is Dr. Donalds, and growing up, his parents always told him not to crack his knuckles because it was bad for him. But since it was so long ago, there's barely any info out there whether it was actually bad for you or not, so he decided to do an experiment. For the next 60 years, he cracked the knuckles on his left hand, but not on his right hand. Then after cracking them every single day for 60 years, he went and got an x-ray to see if there's any difference from his left hand to his right. After looking at the x-rays, the doctors came to the conclusion that there is no differences whatsoever. This is the most dangerous road in the entire world. In Bolivia, there's a road called Youngest Road, and it has been nicknamed Death Road. It's 15,000 feet above sea level, and it's filled with twists and turns. And in some places, it's only 10 feet wide, and just for an example, the average vehicle is 5.8 feet wide. So if there's two people passing each other, one person has to go really close to the edge. But the worst part is, there's not even a guardrail protecting people from falling off the cliff. Even though it's so dangerous, people still decided to drive on it every day. And per year, 200 to 300 people passed away from losing control and falling off of the cliff. But thankfully, in 2006, the Bolivian government decided to make a safer road that people can use instead. This is the youngest person ever sentenced to death in the world. His name is George Steiny Jr., and he was just 14 when he was executed. He was accused of killing two girls who were 11 and 7 years old, because the girls' bodies were found outside of him and his parents' house. The trial lasted for 2 hours, and the whole time he kept claiming that he didn't do it. But only 10 minutes after it was over, they came to the conclusion that he was guilty. He spent the next 81 days in prison without being able to see his parents, and then he was executed on the electric chair. But almost 70 years later, a judge from South Carolina proved that he was actually innocent. Here's what happens when a mosquito bites you. Believe it or not only are mosquitoes really annoying, but they kill almost 1 million people every year. When a mosquito lands on you, it will spit its saliva onto your skin, which numbs it. Then it sticks its 6 tiny sharp needles into you, and it looks for a blood vessel. Once it finds a blood vessel, it will once again shoot out saliva. This lets your blood flow into its body, but also protects you from getting blood clots. Then after it flies away or you squash it, you'll be left with a red itchy bump. And this is caused by an immune response from your body to the saliva. This mom lets her kids do whatever they want, and you won't believe what they can do. Her name is Leah Marshall, a 36-year-old, and her strategy is to say yes to everything. So first off, for breakfast, she allows them to eat any type of candy they want, including ice cream. Secondly, they don't have to do their homework or even go to school at all. They could stay home and play video games all day. And lastly, she even allows them to swear at her. Now you may think her kids are probably rude and spoiled, but they're actually the opposite. Since their mom says yes to everything and lets them do whatever they want, those things become less special to them. So for example, after a few months of eating candy for breakfast, they're sick of it and no longer crave those things. This man sleeps 300 days of the year. So that means he's probably sleeping right now and will be for the next month. But it's not something that he can control himself. He has a rare disease called access hypersomnia, which makes him exhausted 24/7. If he were to lay down for a nap during the day, he would fall asleep and not wake up for an average of 25 days. His family even has to feed him and wash him while he's sleeping. Because if they were to wake him up so he could do those things himself, he would probably just fall back asleep. But even when he's wide awake, he's so tired that he unfortunately can't really do anything. These children laid on the ground to form an arrow, and you won't believe why. One Easter, about 30 kids and adults were taking part in an Easter egg hunt when they noticed a police helicopter circling over top of them. At first, they had no clue why it was there, but then they saw a man running in the distance. So 12 of the parents and kids laid down in an arrow pointing towards the man so the helicopter could see them. Apparently, the officer in the helicopter had lost sight of this man because he was following 2 people, but they split up. Thanks to the parents and the kids, he was able to find him again hiding in the trees. And the cops then got him and brought him to the police station. The helicopter driver then landed beside the kids and parents, and they all shared some Easter treats with the police team. This is what happens on the last 24 hours of death row. On the inmate's last day, they're taken to a new cell called the Death Watch area. They then get to choose whatever they want for their last meal of the day, but it has to be under $40 in most states. The average meal came in at 2,700 calories, which is more than the average person's full day of eating. They also get to talk to visitors through a glass window for the last time. Then at night, they get fitted for a diaper and get put in new clothes. Then when the time comes, they're escorted by guards to the execution area, where they're placed on a platform in front of a window so friends and family can watch. Then they allow the inmate to say their final words, and after that, they slowly pass away from lethal injection. 2 things you never realized you're doing wrong. If you've ever tried eating fast food while you're walking or in the vehicle, you know how hard it can be. Well, it turns out there's a right way to eat McDonald's when you're on the go with no table. First, you open your burger or nugget box and place it over your drink. Then dump all your fries onto the other side to balance it out. You may be thinking this is dumb and not the way, but McDonald's themselves posted this picture on Instagram showing that this is the ultimate meal hack. Now, have you ever hit your fingers while trying to put a nail in with a hammer? Well, lots of hammers have a slot on the top that you could place a nail in, so you don't have to hold the nail with your other hand when you make the first hit. Secrets that carnivals don't want you to know. If you've ever tried playing the basketball game at a carnival, you know that it's really hard to make a shot. And this is because the hoops aren't actually round. They're shaped as an oval to make it harder for you to get it in. Also higher than the regulation height. And they also sometimes inflate the ball more than they're supposed to make it bigger and harder to get in. In the game where you throw darts to try and pop the balloons, they deflate the balloons a lot, making them smaller and harder to hit, but also if you do hit them, less likely to pop. On top of that, the darts aren't as sharp as professional ones. They have a dull edge to them. Here's how to survive a lionfish attack. First off, female lionfish have a lifespan of 15 years. And in that time, they can produce 2 million eggs. If you're in the water and you feel like you've been stung by a bee, then you've made contact with one. The venom specifically targets your nervous system, which is what makes you feel pain. So the first thing you'll want to do is obviously avoid them, but if you've been stung, then try and take out the spines. Next, wash the wound with soap and water, or take a hot bath because hot water breaks down the venom. The pain averagely lasts for 48 hours, so the best thing to do is get some rest. But in some cases, the pain can last for weeks, and if that happens, you should go to the doctor. This couple recognized the car from an Amber Alert, then chased them down. A little girl from Springfield was kidnapped when she got off the school bus. Around 1:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, she was shoved into a blue Honda. Once the police found out about this, they issued an Amber Alert, which if you don't know what this is, it's an emergency response system that sends a message describing what happened to your phone, your TV, and the radio. A few hours later, the cops got a call from a couple saying that they were following the blue Honda. When the driver in the Honda saw that he was being followed, he started going through red lights, but the couple following him did too. They managed to keep following him and explained to the cops where they were headed. They came up to construction on the road, which slowed them down, and they were intercepted by the cops. One of the cops safely got the girl out of the car, while the other two pulled out the driver and arrested him. Rules that presidents have to follow. Every single letter that they get in the mail, or an email, or even a phone call has to be approved by the Secret Service first. After becoming president, they will never be able to drive themselves again unless it's on private property, even if you're a former president. If they want to go somewhere, they'll either have to be driven by an escort or the Secret Service. They're also never allowed to be alone again. So if they want to go for a walk or go to the store to grab something quickly, the Secret Service will have to go with them. They will also get their own library, and in that library will be transcripts of everything they've ever said to the public. This 40-year-old married a 4-year-old, and the reason why will make you cry. This girl named Abby was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 2, and because of this, she spent most of her time in and out of the hospital. She was really sad until she met her nurse, Matt. He checked up on her every single day because he knew she didn't have much time left, and he also did everything that he could to make her feel loved. But Abby loved him so much that she told her mom that she wanted to marry him. Her mom then phoned Matt and asked him if her daughter could marry him. He said yes, and they had their wedding at the hospital. Even though it wasn't a real wedding and they used a ring pop, the little girl will remember this forever. This man took a pregnancy test and it saved his life. A few years ago, a man was in his girlfriend's bathroom when he found a pregnancy test, and for some reason, he decided to use it and it came back positive. He thought it was funny, so he went around telling his friends that he was pregnant, and he even made a meme and posted it on Reddit. But someone on Reddit saw it and left a comment saying that if it was real, he should get it checked for cancer. This is because the hormone that pregnancy tests check for is the same hormone that can be produced if you have testicular cancer. So he went to the hospital to check and he was diagnosed with it, but luckily he caught it in the early stages. What number can you see inside of this circle? I'm gonna give you guys 5 seconds and I want you guys to comment down below what you guys see and then I'll tell you. I. The numbers are actually 345, 288, 9. This is the longest whip ever crafted. This lady